Away we go. Who's the sound man? Good morning. Pastor John this morning mentioned that we're going to talk about being on mission with Jesus. Well, that's not the way this sermon started out. On Monday, we started out with one set of ground rules. And then partway through the morning, I got an email that said, oh, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to talk about being on mission with Jesus. And I kind of went, oh. Well, what do we do with that then? Down already and went, yeah, we can make that work. So we are going to talk today about just what was it like to be one of those men that were wandering around in what was a fairly harsh environment. The picture we have here, I'd like to say it was a period picture, but you can see the wheel marks in the sand, so I don't think that works. But much of the world that Jesus lived in looked just like this. It was very rugged. It was, when you get rain in the desert, it's not a gentle little sifting of water coming out of the sky. It's usually a downpour, and it hits the sand and disappears. So just keep that in mind as we're talking today. So we're going to talk about a day of travel in the first century in the Middle East. What was it like to travel with Jesus? To be on mission with Jesus, first I'd like to think about what was it like to be one-on-one with the man. I mean, we hear about him talking to the 5,000. We hear about him talking to huge groups of. But what was it like to really be part of his inner circle? Do you think everything always went perfectly? No. Jesus often retired by himself to get away from the crowds and away from everything that was going on. So this morning we're going to look in the book of Matthew and see if we can discern what it means to be a disciple of Jesus in the first century. And finally, can we or I become a better Christ follower by understanding what was going on in the first century? And that's perhaps a little tougher, because I've never had to walk in the desert. I've never had to worry about sandals falling off my feet. This morning I wore the wrong shoes, so I'm up here in my sock feet. My wife would be very upset if I showed my dirty old sneakers. So let's get into it. So they're out and they're walking, and where are they going? In this portion of Matthew, they were on their final journey to Jerusalem. So Jesus had already been talking to them earlier. And let's just see what he's having to say here. But Jesus called them over and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles dominate them, and the men of high position exercise their power over them. It must not be like that among you. On the contrary, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." So, what's going on here? Obviously, he's talking to them, but he starts it out by saying that he called them over. Why was this the time to call a meeting? A timeout? What was going on? He stopped them from wherever they were journeying to and said, hey, come on, boys. Come on over here. We got to talk about this. And that's what he said to them. But what was behind it? What was going on in their lives right then to cause them to think that way? Well, I think Jesus did nothing that he didn't sort of think about beforehand. And the day had progressed. And this is somewhere, that bit that we just read on Matthew is somewhere back there. So let's see what's going on in the meeting. He had an agenda. And he had started out the day by saying, guys, I'm going to die. And he did that in Matthew 20:17-19. And it says, while going up to Jerusalem, Jesus took the 12 disciples aside privately and said to them on the way. So he'd already talked to them. This wasn't the first time today that they had gone over this stuff. And it says, listen. There's an exclamation mark there. So he was trying to get through to these men. Listen, we're going up to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death. Then they will hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked, flogged, and crucified. And then he finishes off by saying, and he will be resurrected on the third day. So, let's put ourselves in the place of those men. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we know we're going to Jerusalem. Yeah, we got that part good. Yeah, okay. What do you mean you're going to be handed over? Who's going to do that to you? Doesn't make sense. Oh, I must have misunderstood him. No, he couldn't really be saying that. But hasn't he told us about he's going to get killed a couple of times before? This is like the third time he's told us this. What's the matter with this man? How can he? No, it can't be happening. I mean, we're just getting good at this. We're starting to understand what Jesus wants from us, and we're starting to get there. So, I'm sure that there had to be discussion going on as they were walking along the road like, Simon, what do you think? Do you think he really meant what he said? Don't know, Peter, but he sounded pretty serious. If you and I were going for a walk, say we were going to walk from here to Elmvale today, that's sort of the distance that they would travel in a day, 20, 25 kilometers. And you're walking along discussing that your leader has just told you he's going to get killed. He's told you that before, but it hasn't happened yet, has it? No. So maybe it won't happen this time either. So, in that first passage I read, he called them over again. So, he's reinforcing it for them. He's understanding that they're not getting what he's talking about. And the conversations were strained in Matthew 20, 23, and 24. He told them, you will indeed drink my cup. But to sit at my right and left is not mine to give. Instead, it belongs to those for whom it was been prepared by my Father. When the 10 disciples heard this, they became indignant with the two brothers. So we need to know a little bit more about this story. Why were they indignant? What was going on? Well, a couple of the boys, their mom was along on the trip. And think about it. Okay, so it's not just Jesus and the 10, it's Jesus and the 10 and, oh, somebody's brought their mother. So that accounts for the other two. Thank you, Carl, for the 12. But I don't know if I was walking from here to Elmvale and I was someone in my about 30-ish. So my mom was maybe 20 years older than I am, maybe. So she's 50-ish. At 50, would you want to walk from here to Elmvale after doing that same sort of trip the day before? So whole families were there. It wasn't just the disciples and Jesus. There was a whole entourage coming along behind him. People to worry about. But what the disciples were worrying about right now was Mom had come up and said to Jesus, you know, I got two really good boys. They're the best amongst all of these. And I really think you should reward them. When you become king, oh, hold on now. She thought he was going to become king. And that meant he was going to be alive. And he was going to be king of all the Jews, right? So she is saying, my two boys, one should sit on your left and one should sit on your right. It would be so nice, Jesus. And Jesus told her, he said, you know, I don't think so. And he talks about the cup he's about to drink. What was that cup? It wasn't wine. It was death. He was about to die. And he wasn't just going to go sit in the corner somewhere, put his feet up, close his eyes, and pass away quietly. I don't even know if you remember the movie, The Passion, and the way Jesus looked a day after this was all taking place. First, he was beaten. And the Romans were really good at laying a beating on you. They knew how to beat you to within a moment of your death. They knew how to inflict pain on you that was unbearable. And that's what was going to happen to Jesus. So he's walking along the road, and because he's Jesus and he's God, he knows exactly what's going to happen. He's 100% aware of what's going on. So I'm sure he's having a great day in the sunshine, walking along, heading towards his death, knowing what was in store for him. So I'm sure that the disciples were a little bit confused.